Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by Bayor the Old. Lazy manager reneges on a request after I describe what they want. This malicious compliance comes from my girlfriend Jessica, not her real name. For background, my girlfriend is a software test engineer at a computer science related company. She has a lot of jobs there, but one of them involves the review of bugs in the application, which she sees in the form of a ticket. For background, when Jessica started working at this company, her manager Bob would force every new hire to attend meetings every day, going over the ticketing system in excruciating detail, even though all of the new hires stated that they had used them before and didn't need another tutorial. This finally culminated in her manager stating in front of the whole team that the new hires couldn't attend a meeting as they had to go over the ticketing software. And all of the new hires resoundingly stated that they didn't need any more tutorials and would be able to attend, which they did. These tickets get sent to various people, test engineer managers or developers, etc., and in order for them to be closed, the bug needs to be reproduced by the person who wants to close it, and a fix to prevent the bug needs to be added to the code of the product. Here is where the malicious compliance takes place. Jessica is reviewing a ticket documenting a bug in the product and she consults her manager. The ticket gets sent to her manager, who is tasked with reproducing it in order to develop a patch for said bug. Instead of this, her manager asks her to close the ticket herself as he can't reproduce the bug. This is clearly not how the ticket reporting works, as the whole point is that open tickets have not been fixed yet. Jessica would just close it since her manager Bob told her to, and she has only worked there for a few months. The only problem with this is that ticket reporting software requires a reason for closing the ticket to be documented, so people know who to talk to should issues occur. Since Jessica is new, people would expect her to make mistakes and it wouldn't be the end of the world if she incorrectly closed a ticket. But she wasn't down to take the fall for something she had no control over. Since Jessica needs to add a reason for closing the ticket and doesn't want to go against the request of her manager, she writes back to him, "Sorry you can't reproduce it, what should I do?" The manager says, "Go ahead and close the ticket, can't reproduce the bug." Jessica says, "Sure. Since you mentioned in the tutorial on the ticketing software that all tickets require a reason for closing, I'll close it and add as a reason, Bob can't reproduce the bug and I was advised by Bob to close it." Her manager immediately replies back, as he apparently just realized what the description of his job was, and tells her not to close the ticket and that he will work immediately to reproduce the issue so it can be documented. Since this, her manager has appropriately documented every ticket she sent without any inane comments. If you found yourself in this situation, would you have any qualms throwing your manager under the bus like that to make them realize, hey, this is not proper procedure, this is not proper documentation? Let me know if you would have any second thoughts about throwing Bob under the bus by labeling it, "Bob can't reproduce the bug, so he told me to close it," in the comments down below. Our next story is by ElanFromRsr. You'll need a ticket for that. I work as a developer at a smallish IT company that has, before my involvement, offered a range of products and services on-premise at our customers. A couple of years ago, we started to offer our services and products as a hosted solution as well. This is where I come in. Over the course of a year, me and one other colleague, let's call him Jeff, ported our products to be suited for a multi-tenant environment. This took a fair amount of work as the original products were not suited for multi-tenancy at all. So in the end, we ended up pretty much rewriting everything. Jeff and I were a good team. Our skills complemented each other nicely. Jeff was always the more technical guy, so he was in charge of the server admin stuff, together with the system's core and security features. I was much more focused on the functional side of the products. I did everything from customer interaction to implementing their workflows, to making sure it all looked good and integrated well with the other applications of our customers. In short, while Jeff knew much more of the back end of our products, I knew what was actually happening in it. This of course meant that every single support request for our hosted solution ended up on my desk. The overwhelming majority of those requests were quick and simple fixes. Small edits to a workflow here, rerunning a batch job there, that kind of stuff. While I did need Jeff here and there, I was able to do about 90% of those requests myself within about 5 minutes. Sure, we had a technical support team, but they were much more focused on the on-premise customers and, with the hosted solution being significantly different at this point, had little knowledge of the hosted products. I'll cut out a bit in the middle, but about 2 years and a number of reorganizations later, we've ended up at the situation where one of our support staff members, she'll be known as Lisa in this story, knows a fair bit about the hosted system. Jeff has moved to the support team in order to keep our hosted environment running smoothly, and between them, they're able to handle about 80% of the support requests that would normally have filtered down to me. Unfortunately, we are in the situation where the support manager, we'll call him Steve, doesn't like me very much. Sure, Steve is a good manager. He takes care of his staff and is a great guy to work with if you're on his good side. Nevertheless, I am not. I have full access to everything, while he doesn't, and it doesn't sit well with him that I, a measly developer, have more access than him, a manager. Last year, as I returned from holiday, I found all of my rights on the production environment, and all but a few on the test environment, revoked. Jeff explained to me that there had been an audit, and one of the results were that, while I was still doing a lot on the operational side, that wasn't well documented. The level of access that I had didn't match the level that suited my job description, and instead of changing the job description, Steve opted to revoke all my rights. But what if I need to do insert random task that I still found myself with astonishing frequency? I asked Steve. Steve grinned and said, "We can give you temporary rights, but you'll need a ticket for that." Cue the malicious compliance. I started making a ticket for temporary rights for every single issue that I needed them for. By the end of the week, I had over 100 tickets on my name. The issues that Lisa used to handle were queuing up, as well as she spent more time granting and revoking my access than she was solving the issues that she could solve on her own. Morale, customer satisfaction, and ticket resolution scores, essentially an inverse of the amount of time a ticket spent waiting for support action, quickly dropped in unison. Steve doubled down. The problem wasn't with access management, the problem was with my blatant abuse of the ticketing system. And therefore, a new rule was set in place that I was not to be granted access to any of the hosted systems at all anymore. Instead, I was to describe my actions in a request for change (RFC) document, which could then be handled by Lisa or Jeff. Of course, every change still had to be approved by the change manager, which of course so happened to be Steve. Great. Now, issues that took me 5 minutes to fix will take me half an hour to write out. I need to spell out every bit of impact that a change will have, and in such a way that Steve, who is by all means not a technician, understands what I'm talking about. Then, Lisa or Jeff will have to make the changes. Of course, if anything unexpected happens, they'll have to roll back and I'll have to figure out what happened and amend the RFC to cope. All in all, something that used to take me 5 minutes now takes an hour and a half at best. At this point, my productivity is down pretty much 100%. Upper management has noticed this as well. Hearing my explanation and seeing my, by now extensive paper trail, they intervene by doing the one thing they could reasonably do. They amend my job description to cover the additional tasks that I've been doing since building the system. And with that, Steve has no choice but to reinstate the access that I've had before. Steve still doesn't like me, but at least now the customers get their issues resolved. Steve is absolutely biased and narcissistic. They're just power hungry and upset that somebody that they feel is below them has more access than they do. But here's the deal, they have that access because they're doing very technical and important stuff. What does Steve have to do with any of that access? Does he want to start trying to learn how to do any of this stuff? I'm sure he doesn't. Steve might be in the absolute top percentile in every other thing they do, but just them acting that way in that scenario makes them not a great manager or a great guy. A great manager, whether they like to or not, would be able to build the team up regardless. And if I was OP, I'd watch my back and keep a paper trail. Our next story is by Garmstrong318. Union says British Rail must do what? Okay. Hi folks, last story for a while. This one is about my father and his career in British Railways. It's the early 70s and my father is working at a traction maintenance depot on local passenger trains into and out of London. Part of his job was after doing work on a unit, he would move it from the work sidings to the sidings ready for service. This job was also done by other fitters and staff in the TMD. This often saved time to get the services started on a morning. Please note, this had been done for some time and was done within the TMD and not on the working main line. One Monday morning, as my dad was working, he and the other fitters and staff who moved the units were called into a meeting. The railway union, I can't remember the name at the time, had decreed that only fully qualified drivers and firemen, or second man, could move any train or loco. This meant that trains could only be moved when a driver was on duty with a second man with him. However, here is where the problem lay. British Rail did not have drivers working overnight at the TMD, and often during a day they were all out on trains. As all the staff were frankly fed up, they decided to abide by the union's demand and didn't move any units. Within a month, service levels had dropped dramatically. Normally on a morning they would need 18 units minimum available. After 2 months, they could only muster 9 to 10. Higher-ups were demanding action. Meetings were called where the staff simply said, "We are abiding by union rules." The union simply demanded more drivers be hired, but few applied and none lasted more than a few weeks before being moved elsewhere. British Rail tried for around 6 months to get somewhere, but sadly this service remained poor for throughout. Eventually, British Rail came up with a nifty plan. They simply each night had 3 freight engines sent down to pick up the faulty units and haul them to the nearest large maintenance facility and bring them back the next day, as the larger place was a 24/7 facility, so they had drivers on hand. This of course led to decline in work, and most of the staff were moved to other shops or locations. My father moved from there to work at King's Cross Control on the ECML, seeing in the HST trains, and the swan song of the Deltics. It's unfortunate that the union was so rigid in their rules and very short-sighted on what they could and couldn't do. From the sounds of it, it basically ruined British Rail. This next story is by South FL CPL 96, Black Friday TV Deal. So a few years back, I had bought a new TV from Best Buy for around $1,600. 2 weeks later, the same TV went on sale for $1,250. So I asked the employee at the customer service desk if they could price match it. They said that they couldn't do that, so I told them that I was simply going to return the old TV and purchase a new TV if that was the case. Sure enough, they said there's nothing they could do, so that's exactly what I did. Rather than just lose the $350 from the sale price, they ended up losing that plus the discount they had to give on an open box TV sale. I definitely feel like they should do a price matching guarantee, especially on products that cost that much. Because let's face it, if you can save that much on the TV, you're going to get people returning it anyways and buying it at the cheaper price just to save that money. You might as well go ahead and price match it so you don't lose out on even more money having an open box or even no box TV, right? And our final story of the day is by ShadySide77, Fireworks Company. I worked for a fireworks company in college. This is my boss's story. He was heading to a show with all the fireworks in the trailer. He had to go through a wait station on the interstate due to the cargo and federal regulations. He got pulled over for an inspection, which wasn't a problem. He had the paperwork in line. Well, the inspector found a problem. The fire extinguisher wasn't properly secured. Not that it was missing, just not secured. My boss jerry-rigged it to be secure, but it didn't pass to the inspector's liking and demanded my boss leave to get the right bracket, but had to dump the trailer. Since my boss had a show to get, it was going to be a problem. My boss persisted, but the inspector wasn't moved, so my boss offered to comply. Since the inspector would have forced my boss to drop the trailer, he made it an immovable bunker. This means, according to federal regulations, there is not supposed to be a road within at least 500 feet. I believe the number, the story is a little old. As stated, it was at a wait station on the interstate, so my boss demanded the interstate be shut down for the 3 days it would have forced him to get the part. I mean, the regulation about the fire extinguisher is a safety regulation, so you would expect the inspector to understand. Well, let's just put it this way. The inspector thought my boss's jury rig met the requirement after that conversation. "Oh, so you want to shut me down for 3 days, huh? You know what, your handiwork, it's pretty alright. Why don't you just go on through and we'll act like we didn't see anything here. I guess sometimes the nuclear option is the way to go to solve your problems. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you enjoyed the stories today, let me know which one was your personal favorite and why in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, please like this video and subscribe and turn notifications on because anything you do helps this channel grow so much more. So no matter what you do, whether it was just watching the video, liking, subscribing, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day and I'll see you all next time right here.